Hi, y'all. We are live for another great Live at 5. This one's a super important topic. It's on hurricane preparedness. So it's basically all encompassing hurricane preparedness 101. It's never too early to be prepared. As we've seen from this weekend when Cristobal came through already, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as was expected, but they're definitely preparing for an active hurricane season. So we want to definitely be prepared this season. So we have two really special guests to get y'all fully prepared today. We have LSU Ag Center Assistant Professor and Food Safety Specialist, Winnie Zhu, and of course, Assistant Professor and Horticulturalist, Heather Kirk Ballard.
Hey,
Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for being here. And again, y'all can ask any questions to them during the show. And can y'all give us a little bit of background about yourselves before we start?
Sure. My name is Winnie, and I'm a consumer food safety specialist with the School of Nutrition and Food Sciences. I have both extension and research appointment. So for my research, I work with bacteria and viruses that make you vomiting or having diarrhea. For my extension works, I work with general public about, especially consumers, about food safety related issues.
Awesome.
All right, and I'm Heather Kirk Ballard. I am the host of the Get It Growing Show. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Plant and Environmental Soil Sciences. I have a small research appointment, and most of my research centers around consumer horticulture. So I'm the consumer horticulture specialist for the state, and I'm here for the home gardeners and for our consumers.
So, Winnie, I kind of want to throw it at you first. I actually want to talk about COVID-19 and hurricane preparedness to begin with, because I think our viewers are really interested in that topic right now because it's a big topic. And, what do they need to do apart from like just the food and water supply and general stuff? Like, what extra steps do we need to take during COVID-19 to be prepared for hurricane season as well?
Sure. Apparently, the COVID-19 situation just made the hurricane season more complicated because now, if you evacuate, you go to shelters and places, you need to worry about social distancing, and you need to worry about bringing a mask. And if you have any household disinfectant supplies and all those, bring those too. So those are some add-on supply lists to our already food and water list for the hurricane preparedness.
Okay. How do you actually wear a face mask, because we've seen a lot of people wearing them wrong, and we'd love if you could actually demonstrate that.
Sure. I don't have now a lot of people are wearing the fabric masks they make by themselves. I saw some really cool ones, but I don't have those. Apparently I don't sell stuff, right? So, and some people are wearing this type of mask, and some people wear the N95 mask. They're all fine, but when you wear those masks, okay, you have mask here. The outside of the mask is considered contaminated, considered dirty. So inside of it is clean, where your mouth and nose are. So what you don't want is to mess up the outside and inside of the mask. All right. So when you have a fabric mask, of course, you sew it like this, like the strings tied together, so you can just put on your behind your ears. That's easier to wear. This one is harder, so may take me a couple seconds to wear it. But then oh my God, I look ridiculous.
It's a mask.
I know, but I mean, I never see myself on camera when I'm wearing a mask. So you have a top tied and you have the bottom tied here. Okay, what's important is to stretch this to have a full coverage. Okay. And the nose piece here is a metal piece inside. So have a nose piece, have it fit your nose, so you cover it like this. So when you go outside, try not to be like touching the outside of your mask, then touching your eyes or anything else. So because this side, we just said, is considered dirty, right? So I saw a lot of people wearing masks is like this. Then when they need to talk to somebody, they feel like, oh my God, there is a barrier between me and the person. I want to talk to them. So they drag the mask down like this.
Right.
And then it's all cracked here. This one is clean, so don't worry about it. And they crack here. Then when they need to wear them, they become like this. So this whole time, your hands, your face, and everywhere is contaminated, like again with this movement. So in this situation, the mask is not really effective. Same thing with our gloves. Some people wear gloves. They're like, I'm very cautious. I go to stores, I wear gloves. the gloves are like my second skin. Then they have the gloves on. Then they touch everywhere, right? They touch the cars, touch the doorknobs and all those. And they just like, oh, I feel itchy. Oh my God, I'm just kind of touching this.
Yes.
So what's the point where those personal protection PPEs, if you're using them wrong? So we say if you have to evacuate during the hurricane season for the adults, make sure you be a good role model for your kids, because you keep doing the mask like this, your kids gonna follow you, because they don't really understand what's happening behind this, why you have to wear a mask. So they watch the parents. So if you can be a good role model, keep a social distance from others, even though you are away from your home, and make sure you wear masks correctly and wear gloves correctly, and your kids would follow. So that would be a better way to do it.
That makes sense. And when it comes to like general hurricane preparedness, what do you recommend?
Well, when we say general hurricane preparedness, the normal 3-day food supply and the 3 days of water supply, that's a basics, right? So you have the food supply, you can count 3 days, 3 breakfasts, 3 lunch, and 3 dinners. And for us those of us who like to snack, right? My morning snacks and my afternoon snacks and my bedtime snacks, maybe don't do that. Don't do bedtime snacks, but like all the snacks, you count them, and per person for your household. Especially those with special needs. If you have an infant, what about the formula? What about other stuff, right? You have elderly at your home. Make sure you pack the food, diabetics, and all those with special needs. You need to pack a specific food for them.
Sure.
So count the meals, count the number of people in your household. That's easy. For water, averagely speaking, we say 1 gallon of water per person a day. But that is including the drinking as well as cleaning, like you brush your teeth and all those activities.
Can you repeat that? Because I think you froze for a minute.
Okay.
How many gallons per day?
Normally it's 1 gallon. We recommend averagely 1 gallon per person per day. However, that is depending on your activity levels, right? So for some of us who don't do a lot of activities, maybe 1 gallon is enough. For those of y'all who runs a lot and move a lot, you may need more than 1 gallon. You probably drink just by drinking, you can have 1 gallon. Then you have some cooking water as well as cleaning water. So just count those in. And when you prepare for the water, we say the commercial bottled water is the safest way to do it. If you have to store your own water, you want to use the camping food grade containers. And all those, try to avoid reuse some of the juice containers that, those are not good. It's not sealed or whatsoever. So use the bottled water if you can.
Okay. So when it comes to power outages, can you eat that food? Like how long before you shouldn't eat the food in the fridge, or, how long? How does that work? You're a food safety specialist. You can give it to us.
For a food safety specialist, I'll tell you, it depends, because that is a tough question. Like, depends on what type of food and how it is stored, right? So if you have perishable foods in your fridge, when you are doing the hurricane preparedness, you say, okay, I'm gonna move those foods into freezer so they can stay longer. Which you need to be familiar with your freezer inventories, know what's in the freezer, and organize them in a way that you can minimize the times you open the freezer. How many times you open the fridge and freezer also cause a temperature rise inside the fridge or freezer. So if you have foods in the refrigerator, if they are kept below 40 degrees, means that's safe, because that's refrigerator temperature, right? Okay. If you have above 40 degrees over 2 hours, we say that we don't consider it as safe. If you have above 90 degrees, when it's really, really hot, 1 hour is maximum. You have to throw it out. So in the freezer, if you have the food that still have ice crystal on it, or the temperature is still below 40, then you can refreeze them, or you can cook them right away. You can save those foods. But if you have them above 40, of course, you follow the same rules as the refrigerator. So one way to do this is to, before the hurricane hit, try to stock your fridge or freezer with ice packs, or pack them with food. Okay. So that can help the food stay cold longer. But of course, pantry foods, you want to keep moisture out of it, keep the first they have to be undamaged canned foods. If it's cans or retort pouches, those have to be undamaged. They have to have moisture controls, so those could stay longer. So it depends on what type of food and how they are stored.
Okay.
So having some appliances, thermometers, like the temperature of the fridge and freezer is good. And if you don't have those, you have a tip sensitive thermometers. I have one here, like those ones. Then you can take the temperature of your food, make sure they are safe before you decide to throw them away or cook them or refreeze them. Those are good things to do.
Okay, fair enough. Do y'all, both of y'all, do you have any ideas about tools you would need just to prepare for the storm, just to have handy in your house kind of thing?
I would say inside the house, well, besides the food and the water, there are other things that maybe you need, like they're all food related, of course. If you have canned foods, especially you have this type of cans,
yeah,
you need a manual can opener, right? Some people have electric ones, then there's no electricity. There's no point. Then but if you have this type of cans, you don't need one. So when you prepare foods, make sure you choose the stuff that has this type of openings, so it's easier. Then you have the one-time use utensils. So you don't want to open the cans, they have no way to eat it. That would be bad. And of course you have the light, a flashlight, or if you have candles, make sure you have the lighter.
Okay.
Good call. And I think that's for me.
What about you, Heather? Do you have any tools to add to the list?
As far as the landscape goes, the two main things one of the main things that come to mind is you need to possibly have a chainsaw. Make sure it's in operating order if any trees come down. Now, you always want to work with a licensed arborist, but if it's something that you can handle and there are branches that have come down, and you want to wear all the proper PPE when you're using chainsaws, but that in any way that you may have to, saws and things like that. It could be a manual saw or axes. You might need to cut branches down. But speaking about the house and keeping things refrigerated, it's also a good practice that if you do have a generator, you want to pull it out before hurricane season and you want to actually start it up and make sure it's running, because you hate to pull it out after it's been put up for 6 months and that thing won't start when you need it. So it's a good practice to go ahead and pull it out, make sure it has fresh gas, change the oil. The thing with generators is the oil has to be changed at so many hours. You need to consult your, your owner's manual with that and follow those recommendations. So those are my two things, and make sure that you have extension cords, because you need to be able to connect that generator to your refrigerator.
Okay.
I know the two main things that people worry about when we lose power are refrigeration, our food, and if you have a cooling unit, an AC unit for your house, those come in very handy.
Yeah, they do.
So make sure that you have enough extension cords to plug those, and make sure you're reading the manuals that you don't overload these generators. So have fresh gas, start it up before the season, and make sure that you've got oil to make the changes when you need to, because who knows how long the electricity will be out.
I know. So when it comes to the landscaping side of things, I know you just wrote an article about it, like preparing your landscape for the hurricane season. Can you tell us more about, what you're supposed to do for that?
Well, you always want to start off. So hurricane season starts June 1st and ends November 30th. So we need to be ahead of it, and you need to start looking at your lawns in April and May when we're out there getting in the garden in the springtime, sprucing things up. It's a great time to inspect your trees. So you need to get out there and make sure that if there's any limbs that are broken, that we're taking them down. If a tree looks unhealthy, you're seeing some death on the tree and the bark, things like that. Possible damage from the year before, or, in the floods of 2016, it took years for large trees to actually die. So a lot of people are just now taking down trees from that weather event. But you want to make sure that you're checking that out beforehand, because once it becomes hurricane season, this is a busy time for licensed arborists. So they are going to be out there, and you want to make sure you're on their list before it's too late. So just make sure that the trees are healthy. You want to get any, shade trees that you have planted around your house. You want to get in there and cut them back. The branches that are touching the roof, make sure that you're pulling those types of things off, and then, cutting away any kind of shrubs that are really close to the house. Next, check your gutter.
If you have any questions on things like that, Heather, can they contact their local horticulture agent, their local extension agent about, what can I cut?
Absolutely. Yes. Call the Ag Center, reach out to your parish county agent. Also, on LDAF's webpage, there is a list of licensed arborists. You always want to make sure you're working with a licensed arborist. So that is where you should go should you need somebody to help you. Homeowners can do some minor work in trees, but when we're getting up in the tops of those trees, you can't really guess where these limbs are going to fall. And licensed arborists are trained and carry insurance to cover any accidents. So just be careful. You got to watch that house.
Yeah, definitely. Agree.
But other than that, I would say check your gutters.
Okay.
You want to check your gutters and make sure that all debris is removed from it, so it doesn't bottleneck your water. You want everything to move away from the house as quickly as possible when we have a downpour. So get up there on the ladder, check and make sure that gutters are clean and that water is moving away. Make sure that the gutters are well attached to the house, aren't loose. You just want to do an inspection of the house every year before hurricane season, checking gutters, checking trees, and then make sure that you've raked up any leaves. At this point, just about everybody has raked up anything that's in the yard. Make sure that it's free of debris so that we're not clogging our drainage systems. Flooding is a major thing when it comes to these hurricanes. Winds may not be very high, but if we can't get the water away in a quick enough time, people are going to be flooding. So you want to make sure that you're doing your part to make sure that those gutters are clear of any debris. If you mulch, which most people do, it's a great practice in order to keep weeds down in the lawn and to conserve moisture for our plants. In a gully washer, that stuff will float off. So if you don't have a barrier around your bed, go ahead and try and put something up that would prevent all of your mulch from flooding away. And then, of course, anybody who lives in the South and has gone through hurricanes knows you better cut that grass before the storm comes. Because if you're not cutting grass, if we get a hard rain and we're holding water for quite some time, you're going to be weed eating that thing in 2 weeks, and it's going to be horrible. So get the grass cut so that you don't have to deal with that later. And for the vegetable farmers, I would recommend go ahead and harvest, because who knows how high that water will get. And if it covers your fruit, it's going to damage it, and then it's not going to be safe for consumption. You want to get out there and harvest. It's okay to go ahead and harvest green tomatoes that are big enough. They can ripen. They will taste the same, whether they ripen on the vine or they ripen on your counter. They're going to ripen in the same amount of time. So if they're fully grown, go ahead and pull them off. Sometimes those ones that, a lot of people think that ripening on the vine is the only way for the fruit to ripen, but it's not really true. Sometimes those things, when we buy things in the produce store, they taste like a like a wet sponge, because they've been bred to look pretty and they've been bred to last longer, not necessarily taste good. So as farmers or as people who grow vegetables, it's okay to go ahead and harvest tomatoes that are grown but not red yet, right? And tomatoes are thebomb.com, so you can try it too.
What about people who have irrigation in their yards? Is there anything they need to do with that?
Thank you for reminding me. Turn it off. Conserve water. You're going to have rain, and the last thing that your yard needs is to put more rain in the landscape. Your lawns are going to already be saturated. You're just putting more water that's going to end up in our drainage system. So go ahead. If you know a storm is coming, you can turn that irrigation off and safely leave it off, probably for a week or so.
Fair enough. And I mean, I know, guys, it's not the most exciting topic, and it's also not the one we really want to talk about because it's hurricanes, and everybody, you know, has probably experienced one down here. But I can say from personal experience, like my family went through Hurricane Katrina and had a tornado come down our street, and you know, had trees come through our house. So, and thankfully we weren't there. But like, the thing is, we really do have to prepare for the storms. And so just being prepared ahead of time, especially this active hurricane season, like we're already seeing tropical storms in June. Like we need to be prepared. We need to be ready. And when it comes to preparedness and COVID-19 again, when it comes to flooding, how does the whole disinfectant thing work?
Well, if your house is flooded, you first thing you have to decide is what you can keep, right? So when again goes back to the food and the water, if you had the water as the bottled water, I mean, they are relatively safer than your own food containers, your own water containers. So if you go ahead and stock up the bottled water. But if you have food that came in contact with the flood water, if we have like canned foods or whatever came in contact with the water, then you have to figure out if they're safe to consume. If they're not damaged, they're intact, you want to go ahead and save them. So you have to go through a list of procedures to keep them safe. So you remove like this can, you have the labels on them. You remove any labels. And then because those papers, those papers can harbor a lot of harmful bacteria in them. So remove them. And then you see the cans, they're not as smooth. They have all those rims and stuff. All those places, can harbor bacteria. So if you need to wash them with water and soap, prefer hot water if you have them.
Okay.
Then after you wash them, you rinse the soap off, of course. If you don't, then the soap gonna bother your disinfectant later. So after you rinse it off, then you use the disinfectant. And most times we use bleach. So you put one cup of bleach into 5 gallons of water and soak it for like 15 minutes.
Okay.
And when you pull them out, remember, do not rinse them again. Some people rinse them after disinfecting. You are basically recontaminating your cans.
Oh,
because your water is not guaranteed safe, right? After disinfecting, you should just keep it and let it air dry. After air dry, then you don't have those labels anymore. Then you use your marker. That's why it's good to have a marker too, to mark what type of product that is and the expiration date on it. So. Okay. Those are some practices. Of course, you can use it for retooled pouches, undamaged. If you have kitchen flooded, you want to clean and disinfect your kitchen countertops and utensils, pots and pans, all those stuff. But if you have like a wood cutting boards, and all those stuff, those are not safe to. They can soak into get into the woods, and it's not safe to. Disinfect. Even you disinfect, it's not going to be safe to use. So you have those other utensils, pots, pans that you can save. Then you want to again soaking them into the bleach solutions, clean, then soak them into bleach solutions for them to be safe. Kitchen surfaces needs to be clean and disinfectant.
Okay. Can you go over like the different types of disinfectants? Like, how does this work? How long because your videos were quite popular, ladies. Like right when COVID-19 started, like we've done some videos with you, like how to properly sanitize. And I mean, it blew everyone's mind because personally, I didn't even know that either, that like you have to read the instructions and it's like totally different from the other. It's not just like a one size fits all. So could you explain that to us a little bit?
Sure. First of all, when we say you clean and sanitize and disinfecting, those are 3 different words, right? People think they're the same, but they're not. When you talk about cleaning, you remove the debris, the visible whatever items on the top. that on the surface, that is called cleaning, right? Normally you do it with soap and water.
Okay.
And sanitizing, most times you're targeting the bacteria, and it's to reduce, we call germs, reduce the germ count on the surfaces. Disinfecting is to kill the germs on the surfaces.
Okay.
And EPA approved disinfectants targeting not only the bacteria, but also virus. That's why if you notice in all the CDC, the government agencies during this COVID pandemic, the word they keep using is disinfecting.
Yeah.
So first of all, there's difference between among those three words. And when it comes to disinfecting, you have to always clean stuff first. If it's not cleaned, it's gonna ruin the efficacy of the disinfectant.
Oh.
Because the active ingredients, they're supposed to target on the microorganisms directly, but because you have food items, especially you have fat or protein, whatever you have a dirty countertop on those, you spray it out, it's not gonna be helpful because it's not even clean surface. The disinfectant would in contact with organic matter first, then they would lose a lot of their efficacy just by doing that. Then the germicidal effect would be limited.
That makes sense.
Talking about the disinfectants, I like to show my disinfectant collections.
I've seen your bag of disinfectants. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I carry it everywhere. And again, we're not trying to do advertise on any specific product. We're not trying to promote Lysol. We're not. So we're trying to talk about the EPA approved disinfectants, especially during this COVID time. So some things people don't notice. People know the brand of the product. This is Lysol, right? We have Clorox. It's heavy. Clorox bleach. We all have those in our household, so we know the brand name of those.
Sure.
Or you have some wipes, right? Clorox wipes or Members Mark, whatever other wipes. So you know the brand name, the trade name of those products. But you really need to look into is here on the bottom of it is active ingredients. Here.
Okay.
Active ingredients. So normally you have different categories. You have organic acid. So this is your citric acid, which when people use lemon juice, that is citric acid. When people use vinegar, that is acetic acid. Some people use lactic acid. Those are all organic acids, right? Then of course you have sodium hypochlorite, which is active ingredients of the bleach. Then you have this hydrogen peroxide. This is also Lysol, and it says no bleach on it because the active ingredients here is hydrogen peroxide. It is also a good disinfectant to use.
Okay.
Then you have this one is also Lysol. This is very confusing. Everything is Lysol here. We're not trying to promote Lysol, by the way. This one is dimethyl benzoyl ammonium chloride, which is we call quartz. We use quartz for the other settings, retail settings, and or food facility, industry facility as well. So all of them, of course, you have your alcohol. I made ethanol. I made 70% ethanol. Then you make it, fresh. I make it fresh every week. So that's our different categories of your active ingredients for your disinfectants. And every one of them, because their active ingredients are different, they have different contact time for this to work, because they actually on different mechanism to kill the bacteria or virus. So like this one is a quartz. Okay, this is for sanitize, leave for 10 seconds before wiping. We mentioned earlier, sanitize to reduce the numbers, right? For disinfect, leave for 2 minutes before wiping. How many of us actually leave for 2 minutes before we wipe? Nobody, right? But then you wonder why it's not effective, because you need to follow the instructions. And this one, I think it is 10 minutes. This one. Okay, this one to disinfect is leave for 10 minutes before wiping. So the surface has to be visibly wet for 10 minutes before you wipe it for it to be effective, because you have the quartz, it's a positive charged disinfectant. The mechanism for it is to binding with a negative charge. Most of the membrane surface of the bacteria are negatively charged, so they bind together and neutralize it. But if you have sodium hypochlorite, the bleach mechanism is to mutate the DNA or the RNA of the bacteria. So it's every one of them is different. Organic acid, of course, is change the acidity of the cells that then you can kill them. Okay. So different active ingredients, different mechanism, different contact time. So you have to read the labels.
Read the labels, y'all, because I had no idea. Like, I really didn't know until we did the video with you, and I was like, my mind is blown.
Do you read labels now?
Yes, I do. I'm like, when I actually want to disinfect things, I'm like, okay, now I need to do it this way. But do y'all have any extra things you want to add? We've kind of gone over everything, like hurricane preparedness wise.
We were talking about disinfectant. One more thing I want to say, most of those EPA approved disinfectants are used for the hard and non-porous surface.
Okay.
Some people asking, what about my fabric? Well, wash them, right? They get wash with as hot water as it can take. Because those things, when you spray it in the porous surface, it's gonna absorb and it's not gonna be effective. Okay. So we have actually done research on that. So we have done the disinfecting different contact surfaces in the airplane cabin, and those seatbelt, it's porous seatbelt surfaces. None of the disinfectant was effective, just because it get absorbed in there, and it's not what it intend to use for. Because EPA was very specific about it is used for hard and porous, non-porous surfaces.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank y'all very much. Heather, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah. I forgot to mention that if we are going to have hurricanes that have high force winds that might be knocking over container plants, it's also a good idea to go ahead and bring container plants inside the garage, underneath the patio where it won't be picked up. You also want to pick up all your tools and all those types of things, secure patio furniture, take down flags. If you have statues you think that could be knocked over, just go ahead and lay them on their sides. It's better off for you to go ahead and do that as opposed to letting the wind knock it down and possibly break it. You also want to unplug water features. Many homeowners like to have water fountains and things like that. Go ahead and those during that time. And then we also want to, if you have compost bins or rain barrels, if those are not completely filled, and heavy, go ahead and move those to a place where they're secured and they cannot be picked up and just thrown across the place. And then if you have large container trees that are just too large to move, into the garage and what have you, lay them on their sides, just like you would any statues or anything like that that could possibly be broken or fall over. So that's just some of the stuff you want to think about. And, when Winnie was talking about the canned food and having, the can opener available and all that, kind of brought to mind that my parents were big campers. And so we always had Coleman stoves, and we had the little propane tanks. You can now get the propane burners with just one burner. If you don't have electricity for several days, how are you going to cook your food? You might be going back to primitive, and good luck finding dry firewood. But it might be a good idea to get, propane burners and things like that during this time, and having a supply of propane so that you can cook food.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank y'all a lot for going through all the different things. So everyone should be really prepared from this. I'm telling y'all, go back and watch it. It will be available on Facebook forever. And we're also going to upload it to the Ag Center's YouTube channel, so y'all can watch it there as well. But thank y'all again, because this really gets people prepared. I think the tropical storm this weekend got everybody kind of kicked into the mindset, hey, now's the time. And I've added a link in the comments, guys. That's hurricane preparedness publications and resources we put together from the Ag Center. It can all be found on one page. So it's in the comments. Y'all go check that out. And thanks, guys, for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank y'all. And of course, next week we'll have another live at 5, and y'all check it out later in the week on our Facebook page for what's coming next. So y'all stay safe and be prepared. Bye, guys.